Hi kids, today we're going to read a book called It's Our Garden, From Seeds to Harvest in the School Garden by George Ancona. He's the author, the one who writes the words. Let's open up our book and see what happens. Can you see the pages? Right there, okay. The school bell sounds and the classrooms explode with the noise of books closing, chairs sliding on the floor, and the kids clattering. It's time for recess. The students head outside to the school garden. Miss Carthy, that's her right here, the third grade teacher, dreamed of having a school garden. She talked to all the other teachers, the principal, and the parents, and they all worked together to make her dreams come true. The garden is cared by Miss Sue. Miss Sue's husband, he's in this picture, will design the layout of the garden. The college students, Paul, Danielle, Autumn, and Allie, volunteered to guide the children in the garden project. Students enter the garden through an arbor. It's spring and there's lots of chores to be done. Depending on the weather, some classes are held in the open classroom, the garden, or the greenhouse. In early spring, Miss Sue asked the students to make a book with pictures they cut out from the seed catalogs. These are the flowers, fruits, and vegetables that the students would like to grow. Later, she and the students will decide where to plant them. Every day, one student is asked to take a bucket of food scraps from the lunch and snack and dump it into the compost pile. The compost is made up of soil, dead plants, and food scraps. Inside the pile, red ringle worms are busy eating and turning these ingredients into castings, which the students call poop. Compost is mixed into garden beds to provide food for the seedlings. Springtime is planting time. These are a few of the seeds that will be planted in the garden. These are sunflower seeds, these are pinto beans, these are cucumber seeds, and these are potato seeds. When it's still cold outside, some seeds are planted in the greenhouse. Their students fill small plastic pots with rich soil and plant a seed in each. The pots are left in the greenhouse, where the sun warms them. Soon, tiny seedlings begin to pop out of the soil. When they are bigger, the weather is warmer, the plants will be transplanted into the garden beds outside. Flowers, vegetables, and fruits are planted in the beds of rich compost earth. A teepee made of bamboo poles stands in the middle of the garden. Some students plant bean poles, seeds, at the base of each pole. The plants will grow up the teepee and sprout their pods. Meanwhile, in the morning shade of the school, Paul hands out salad green and flower seeds to plant in the waffle bed. The bed's low walls of adobe bricks will help keep the water in. So they're going to plant beans on these poles right here, and the beans are going to grow up the bean poles and then sprout pods, right? And then this right here, this is what the adobe brick is. So they made this adobe brick and it's going to keep the water in. And this is Paul, and he's handing out some salad green flowers, or salad green seeds, and then flower seeds for the kids to plant in there. Okay, over here. Another group of students plant squash seedlings, Daniel helps the students transplant the tomato seedlings, and once the seeds and the seedlings are in the ground, the beds are watered and covered with a mulch or straw to keep the soil from drying out. A lot of water is needed to keep the garden healthy. When it rains, water flows off the rooftop, a drain pipe, and into the underground tank called the cistern. The solar panel on the roof of the outdoor classroom creates electricity to run the pump that draws water from the cistern. One of the students' favorite jobs is watering the garden. Miss Sue fills a colorful watering cans for them. The tomato plants are surrounded by plastic tubes filled with water. These are called water walls. That's what these are. So the water walls keeps the tomato plant nice and warm, so that if there was a freeze, if it got really, really cold at night, the plant wouldn't die. So water walls are really, really important. During the day, the sun warms the water in the tubes. At night, the tubes provide the warmth that the tomato roots need to grow. Then, when there is no rain water in the cistern, a hose attached to an outdoor faucet is used to keep the soil moist and plants healthy. Even when the students aren't at school, there's a lot going on in the garden. A post with holes drilled in it becomes a nest box for mason bees. What's this over here? Which they don't sting. Birds come to eat at the feeders. Worms are busy eating and making tunnels in the compost pile. Flowers produce a sweet liquid called nectar. When a bird, a bee, or a butterfly goes onto a flower and drinks the nectar, and a powder called pollen sticks to them. When they fly to another flower, the pollen rubs off. Pollen allows the flowers to make the seeds that will grow into flowers, fruits, and vegetables. This process is called pollination. It's very, very important to have bees and butterflies and birds to pollinate our flowers. In the early spring, a teacher orders butterflies, cocoons, by mail. When they arrive, the students put the cocoons in a nest cage to raise them in the classroom. When the butterflies emerge, they are taken to the garden and released so that they can pollinate the plants. Many different creatures live in the garden or come by to visit. Crickets, ladybugs, grasshoppers, and beetles fly, hop, and crawl about. Pillbugs, those are these, are also called roly-polies. Grasshoppers and even garden snakes can be found living among garden plants or tunneling in its soils. There are lots of things in the garden to write and draw about. An easel in the middle of the garden invites everyone to draw what they see or write down what their thoughts and experiences are. Some students use leaves to make leaf prints. Their art decorates the greenhouse and the outdoor classroom. While the plants are growing during the warm spring days, there is still a lot of work to do in the garden. Students mix sand, dirt, water, and cut up straw to make adobe bricks. The bricks are used to make the low wall for the waffle beds. In the Southwest, adobe bricks are still used to build houses. Adobe is also used to coat the harno, the traditional oven used to bake bread. Every spring, the harno in the corner of the outdoor classroom gets a fresh coat of adobe. So this is the outdoor oven. There are many different plants in the garden, in the herb garden, such as basil, tarragon, lemon palm, chives, sage, lemon verbena, and an Egyptian walking onion. Every plant has its own taste and smell. Radishes are harvested in the spring. Miss Sue asks some students to pick the radishes. After washing the dirt off them, the children can bite into the bright red vegetable. One girl finds hers too spicy and drops it into the compost pile. More food for the worms. On a special afternoon and weekends, the garden becomes a place where the school community gathers. Students come back with their parents, sisters, brothers, grandparents, and friends. They compost, seed, plant, and transplant weeds, water, and dig. By now, the flowers are blooming and the beds are green and the garden is flourishing with so much care. Garden chores continue into the summer. School is closed, but the garden is a beehive of activity. It provides the setting for music and gathering of children, grown-ups, friends, and families. By August, many of the fruits and vegetables are ripe. Cooking and eating becomes an ongoing activity in the garden. A father helps the children make pizzas on one community day. First, they mix and punch the dough. Then they roll it out with a rolling pin and pour oil on the flat dough. Ripe tomatoes are cut up and goes on top. And last, of course, is the grated cheese. After a hot fire burns down in the harno, the coals are leveled and the pizza goes in. When the sizzling pizza is taken out, a group of hungry gardeners appear. The slices disappear like magic. Fortunately, there are many more pizzas to come. Summer is over and another school year begins. The leaves on the trees are turning colors, and many of the gardeners' fruits and vegetables are ready to be picked. Students take turn disappearing into the teepees to pick pole beans from the vines. One of the gardener's beds was planted in a traditional Native American way. It's called the Three Sisters Garden. Corn is planted together with pinto beans and squash. The bean vines grow up the corn stalks. The corn stalks and squash leaves shade the soil to keep it moist. Pinto beans are harvested after the pods have dried up and turned tan. By September, most of the tomatoes are ripe. Each student is given a limit as to how many they can pick so that there is enough left for later classes. As the fall grows on, the days start getting colder. Some of the tomatoes are still green. Allie shows the students how to ripen green tomatoes by putting them into a paper bag with a banana. Miss Sue shows some children how to harvest potatoes. Using a shovel or a trowel, the students carefully dig next to the stem. Since potatoes spread out as they grow, digging must be done carefully so that the shovel does not cut into them. Later, Allie helps them identify the different kinds of potatoes they have harvested. Cabbages are a real challenge to pick. Their long, strong roots test the strength and stamina of some of the bigger kids. Lemon cucumbers, also called apple cucumbers, are a new experience for most of the students. The children like them because they can eat them like an apple. In the Three Sisters Garden, the strawberry corn is ready for harvesting. The ears are taken off the stalks, husks, and the kernels picked off the cob and saved in a jar. Later, the kernels are heated in an oil and turned into delicious popcorn snack, much to the students' delight. The harvest becomes a chance for Miss Sue to quiz the students on the variety of crops the gardens have produced. She makes a game of of the quiz, placing the answers face down on a slip of piece of paper underneath the fruit, vegetable, or herb. To celebrate the end of the harvest, a series of lunches is prepared with many of the garden vegetables. These become festivals of good food and fun. The last community day of the year brings the students and families together to prepare the garden for winter. The air is crisp and cold. Frost has turned the trees to gold. Wind have scattered the leaves onto the ground. The green plants of summer are shriveled and brown. Dead plants are yanked out of the ground and put into a compost pile. Compost is strained and mixed into the soil. Strawberry plants and beds are mulched with straw. And all is ready to be covered with a blanket of snow. Sleep tight, garden, until next year. The end. Thanks for joining me for this book. It's Our Garden by George Ancona. Bye.